All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I'd like to call this regular meeting of La Junta City Council to order. Today is July 1st, 2024. The time is now 6 p.m. If we could all stand for the invocation. Dear God, as we gather today as leaders and members of this community, seeking wisdom, guidance, and unity, help us to work together for the betterment of La Junta, to listen with compassion and to act with integrity. May our decisions reflect the values of justice and kindness. Bless our city, its people, and our efforts to build a brighter future for all. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. If you'll stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Schofield.
Ramirez. Velasquez.
Present.
Stoker. Ayala.
Here.
Ochoa. Here. Pentoya. Rickoff. Here.
All right. Minutes of the previous meeting. I would entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes as presented. All
The minutes?
As presented.
Oh, okay.
All seconds is it?
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously with the 4 present. Citizen participation. This is for non-agenda items only. 5 minutes to whoever decides to come up and talk, uninterrupted. Going once, going twice. Moving on. Economic development mid-year update. I will go ahead and read a letter that was sitting on my place here on the dais as I came in for the meeting tonight, addressed to Mr. Davidson. It says, I hereby tender my resignation as Director of Economic Development and La Junta Urban Renewal, effective following the conclusion of the La Junta Urban Renewal Authority and Certified Local Government meeting on July 1st, 2024. My keys and information will go to the city manager.
Yes.
That is signed Cynthia Neeb, who did that right before we came in here tonight. So in lieu of this news, we will postpone this ED update until we meet with our city manager on our path forward going forward from this, and we'll come up with a plan and get us back on track with economic development in La Junta.
No problem.
Okay. But we still have Mr. Tom Seba here to give us a nice update on the Arkansas Valley Conduit, to which we had myself, Mr. Seba, Mrs. Harris, and Mr. Velasquez attend the meeting, as well as Chairman Gary Cranston for the Utility Board last week, and we learned a lot of new things, which Mr. Seba will share with not just the rest of council, but with you as well.
Thank you, and good evening. The main purpose of the meeting that was held last Thursday was the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District, which is overseeing the Arkansas Valley Conduit Project. In conjunction with the Bureau of Reclamation, did a cost update of the Arkansas Valley Conduit Project. First time they've done it in some years, and as we all know, the costs of things since 2019, when it was really last put together, or the costs that they have been operating on, have gone up exponentially. And of course, that has also affected the ABC. In 2019, they were expecting and had hoped a projected cost for the project, say that 5 times real fast, was between 564 and 610 million. As of this recosting project, that now stands at 1.3 billion, that's billion with a B, plus an additional 75 million, which is what they refer to as the Southeastern Sub-Project, and that is what their current estimated cost is for all the connection lines that would go from the main trunk line down to all the different customers. Participation still stands at their claim of 39 participants. It used to be 40. One dropped out some years ago. I have a feeling in some discussions with a few other participants that 39 is a reasonably shaky number, but that's not for me to speak to. That will be for those other entities to speak to for themselves. One thing to keep in mind with this more than doubling of the project, and the Bureau of Reclamation always likes to remind us of this, is that there is a 35% contingency fund that is included in that project. 35% of 1.375 billion is roughly 455 million. Out of that, also any project of this nature that benefits particular entities must have their own section of repayment, and that repayment is also 35%. So for the sake of argument, if this project costs that full 1.3 plus billion dollars, then the repayment that would be owed by the Southeastern Conservancy District, and by extension all of us participants, would also be 455 million. Needless to say, this is an exceptional jump in cost, a lot more, I think, than the district was expecting, Reclamation was expecting, and I think all the participants would be honest to say they were also expecting there to be cost increases, but perhaps not by this much. So in short, where does that leave us at this time? Currently, it basically leaves us in the same place we were before they decided to announce these numbers. They have stated how they plan to try to seek several different avenues to reduce the cost that we would need to pay through that 35%. They suggest legislative action that might somehow reduce the responsibility we have. They will continue to seek low interest loans and grants that can also perhaps reduce that amount. But what to expect from that is anybody's guess. We know how federal funding, and by extension the large amount of grants that come from state and federal funding, is kind of at the whim of who is in charge. It depends what direction the wind is blowing, and it depends how much has been specifically allocated for the project. Current amount of low interest loans and grants from the state of Colorado towards this project equals 120 million, where it is $90 million in low interest loans and $30 million in grants. Okay?
Math.
Math, yep. So there's of course, a very large gap in where that is. It's a large gap that they're going to strive to try to reduce. One thing that is also pretty beneficial to LaHunt at this point is starting today, we had received a $300,000 grant for emerging contaminants. Through the use of this grant, we had a higher level study done a few months ago by Hazen Engineering. We can now utilize this grant to bring that into a much closer scope, to where we can do a lot closer testing, a lot closer research to find what additional treatment methods LaHunta might need to take care of the water quality issues that we have, both on drinking water side and wastewater side. That would bring up a more accurate cost of what those remedies would be, and then we can begin to match that up much more closely as to what the cost of the conduit might be. And that's what will help us definitively choose and decide our path forward in the years to come. Needless to say, regardless of which path it is, it will be expensive, but we will find the least expensive but most beneficial route for our consumers and citizens.
Thank you, Tom. I think that was a great report. I will just add on a little bit to that report is, you know, we were kind of fearing for a while that we were going to get hit at any moment with making a decision. That is not being asked of us at any time currently or into the near future. It doesn't seem like they are going to ask anyone for a decision anytime soon, whether you're in or out. So we will work with Tom and the utility board and other groups to see what LaHunta's path forward will be. But that is the current update on the Arkansas Valley conduit. So thank you for that report.
Yes, sir. Patience is the key. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, moving on, unfinished business, city manager search. There will be a first interview round this week. I think Larry Gilly actually got to meet at least Paul.
We chased each other, we know.
And that will be, I think it's either Tuesday or Wednesday evening. It'll be a Zoom. And we will report next meeting on how that first round went. And then Maureen had a quick disclaimer for not just her, but all council members. So I'll let you do that.
Sure. And I just want to clarify, when Joe says we, he means the search committee.
Yes.
That we appointed back in February? March? It was a while ago. Yeah. So the we here is not the council, which is a perfect segue to my request. I have been getting phone calls, conversations, texts. Is this person, I heard this person has applied, or can you tell me who's applied? And not only do I not know, but even if I did know, it would be inappropriate for me to say. And so I just want to do a little reminder on the search process, that for the integrity of the search process, but also to honor the people who put their names in. They have been told this is a process that is confidential until they are told we would like to bring you for a public interview. And there's lots of good reasons why searches for executive level positions like this are run this way. The people who are applying for this, we hope, have good jobs with communities that want them and want them to stay. And we don't want people to have to compromise their own careers if they're not going to be moving forward in our search. So there's a rhyme, there's a purpose to why searches are the way they are. So
until we move a little bit farther down the road.
Yeah. And when we have whether it's 2, 3, 4, to be determined, I'm not promising any numbers. When we have, when the search committee comes back to council and says we have 2, 3, 4 candidates that we'd like to bring forward for the public process, then we will all know those, but you will all know them too. That is a public process. We will want you to be part of that process. There will be public avenues for that. But I just want to let people know, if they're asking me who applied and I'm being evasive, it's because I don't know, and it wouldn't be appropriate, even if I did know, to pass that information along. But I stressed, I don't know.
And that would be for all council, not just for Maureen. So just, if you guys are getting that from the public, just know that that's what we're doing right now.
It's okay to tell people, I can't tell you, and it's fine. So.
Thank you, Maureen.
Sure.
New business, Mrs. Harris.
The first items are liquor licenses. First was an application for a special events permit by Inspiration Field. That's Brittany Baylor, the event manager. That event is the SECPA CCOM Golf Company Classic. It's going to be held on July 11th and 12th from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at 612 Adams Avenue. I've reviewed the application. All the correct boxes are checked. Fee's been paid. It's fine.
Do you want them separately, or do you want them?
We can do them both together. The second one is an application for a special events permit, again by Inspiration Field. This is just a separate event. This event is the 9th annual poker run and the 4th annual smokeout. That's held on July 27th this year, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., same location at 612 Adams. They completed both, committed the same process for each, and both are in good standing. I recommend approval.
I motion to approve both events. I'll second for licensing.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. That passes unanimously. Mrs. Harris.
Letter B is a resolution authorizing amendment of Ordinance 1663 to be known and cited as the Protection of Persons Under 21 Years of Age from Tobacco Act. You might recall that we did see this earlier. This is an amendment to that ordinance, and I would just share that it is because the form that we were provided was revised, and the revision happened when there was no city attorney here, as far as I know. And so we adopted one that was a prior version that is not the same as what was recommended by the county. So this new form was provided by Nathan Schultz, who's the county attorney, and he indicated that this was the final draft and wanted us to entertain that again.
And some of that wording was from the state level, correct?
That's right, yes.
It was the state level changing,
Yes.
not us
No.
changing anything.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Any discussion? Do you want to say what was updated? Wasn't it just like
There were a large number of pieces that were updated. Primarily, there was greater detail added to the definitions, and then there was also a compliance piece, so that there were consequences for a failure to comply. And that black line to compare the two is something that Melanie has, if anyone would like to take a look at that as well.
But as Brad mentioned, this is from the state, so it's
Yes.
Right, it was, yeah, what I meant
Yeah.
was, the wording changes was from the state level, not us changing anything.
No, in fact, I think what happened is we got a draft before the state had completed their decisions, and then with our transitions, we didn't get that updated draft.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll.
Wait, is this, it's a resolution, so it's a one and done vote, correct? Okay.
If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously.
And-
Mrs. Harris.
Sure. To contrast, the resolution is different than the ordinance that we're seeing now. This is the first reading of an ordinance. It's entitled an ordinance amending ordinance number 1242, the zoning ordinance of the city of La Junta, as concerns vacating an alleyway. Now, that may not make much sense, so quickly let me clarify that what I understand from the Planning Commission is that this was a planned building. A right-of-way was not necessary because it did not need an alley. The city inadvertently maintained a right-of-way through the building that we don't need, and that we are now trying to just make right by removing.
Makes sense, I move approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. And that passes unanimously. The next one is myself. I wanted to have a downtown walking tour, but I wanted it at 8 p.m. It says 8 a.m.
That's a very different thing.
It's a very, very different thing, so I don't know if that's going to affect everyone differently or not. I wanted it to be an evening walking tour. It's open to everybody to come, but I definitely want council there to be able to walk the downtown after 5 at night. And
This Wednesday?
This Wednesday.
On the 3rd of July.
Yes. You might hear some loud bangs. I've been hearing them already. But that is for 8 p.m. And we would meet here in front of the city building, and I'm thinking walking towards First Street and then back to Santa Fe and back over this way.
Is there a reasoning for it, this Wednesday, this soon? I mean, time constraints with you, or?
We're getting into budget time and looking at all that, and there's a lot that I think can be learned from this walking tour. If for some reason you can't make it, I will give a detailed report of what does happen, and we'll go from there. So I do understand it's a holiday, but you know, if you are in town, I think it's good to see what goes on in our downtown area after 5 p.m. And you know, wear some bug spray.
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, I will be unavailable at 8 o'clock that night, so unfortunately.
We can have you on the phone.
I guess, I
Yeah.
might, yeah. But anyway, we'll talk later.
Yep.
But to clarify, the public is invited.
The public
Yeah.
is invited. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to committee and board reports. Do we have any committee and board reports?
That's an update from the senior center meeting that I would have given at the last council meeting, but I wasn't here. There's 519 members as of the 27th. The last meeting, Mr. Golding showed up and he talked about some concerns about the rental of the senior center, or it not being available for rent. So we discussed that, and
as soon as the senior center is back up to staff, which is one of the primary concerns, is not putting up rent, we'll revisit that. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. Another thing of note is Lahana City Transit and Southeast Transit are offering free fares for the month of July and August. So if you don't utilize our free transit or our transit system in Lahana, it is available to you for free use. And the senior center will be closed on the 4th of July.
Okay. Any other committee or board reports?
I have a question on that, for the rental. Do you feel like they would be possibly fully staffed around the end of September, first week of October? Is that maybe a possibility?
I do know they were, the spot that they were filling, they are in the very, very final stages and very close to that. I don't know where else they're at on other ones, but that was the spot I think they were trying to work with.
Yeah, that's for personnel.
Okay, because the City of Lahana Council will be hosting the fall CML here.
Okay.
So.
And when is that?
We haven't set a date.
We've got to wait till see if the senior center's available. No, I'm just kidding.
We were waiting on
Okay.
someone to give us a
Yeah.
time frame, so.
Mel.
Yeah, it'd be Joe, it'd be the end of September, I believe, the first week of October, and.
They wanted to see some tarantulas too, right?
They're wanting to come down.
That was
about that
this
time,
time.
so, roughly, I would say there wouldn't be any more than 75 in attendance, but, so.
For me, I'll work with the senior center and chat with them and see where we're at. And even if they didn't have it, we can maybe make something happen to show off our facility.
When someone gets us a date.
You got it.
we're gonna do.
Yeah, I'll get with my city managers.
July
Yeah,
3rd
see what we
at
can do.
8 p.m.
July 4th. All right. City attorney comments. Oh, I'm sorry, Brad.
That's okay. I had some things to share, but you know.
Never mind.
You know, this last weekend, I mean, I got a few things, not very much, but we had the AMR Safety Jam there in the city park on Saturday for the first annual. They had over 30 vendors that signed up that came, and everybody came out, and they had almost 500 people sign up as registrations. So I want to give a big thank you out to AMR, Otero County Health Department, everybody like that worked on that, getting that going. And I think they want to try to maybe make it an annual event. They already have a date picked for next June, same place, and hopefully make it a little bigger and put us on the map on that way. So great turnout, and thank you for everybody that came out. The library, you know what, it's been going really strong. I got an update here. So far through June, they've had over 1,304 people, kiddos, come through the different programs. That's what we're at right now, 1,300. Big numbers through there. And that's Tuesday through Friday. That includes the Teens Club, the Lego Club. They have other things that's been going on, good turnout. Their reading program, as of towards the end of June, they had a total of 335 kids signed up for that, or people, I should say, because there's an adult reading program as well. They have until the 20th of July, so they're on track to beating last year's numbers. Last year's numbers was 360 for the reading program, and they still have almost a month to go, so they felt really strong about that. So a lot of hard work, a lot of good things going over at our library, and I'm very happy about that.
It's busy all the time.
It's busy, and it's kind of neat to see the little groups of kiddos walking back and forth with their daycares or whatever during the day and going back and forth. Over at the Brick and Tile Park this week, the youth core group that's in town in the area doing some work, they're going to be over there this week doing some landscaping, helping touch up some things and work around the park. So you may see them in town. This is just a little information from the electrical department. As everybody knows, it's been a little warm lately. Little extra strain on the inner workings of everything for electricity. Lots of air conditioners being used, things like that. So it's putting a lot of strain on our inner workings. They've had some transformer issues pop because there's more demand for electricity right now. Chris Arwell and his guys had a big one go out in the industrial park over the weekend, which knocked out the entire industrial park for a few hours. They got most of it up and running, but the transformer that went out actually went out over by Lewis Bolt, and part of Lewis Bolt had to shut down for a couple days because it took a couple days. And these aren't just the small transformers; these are the big ones that we have to order in, and you just can't go to Lowe's and buy a transformer off the shelf. So it took a little bit to get in. They did, I believe, get it in today and up and running. So my hat's off to the electric guys. But just kind of remember, if you're not using things in your house or your buildings, turn off all that extra stuff to kind of help take the load off a little bit. And our weather, I mean, it hasn't been cooling off at night much either. So air conditioners have been running 24/7. So that's just a little thing from them. Water department, talking to Tom this morning, they do have a little concern. They've been kind of watching and monitoring the main water line that runs from the distribution plant out to the industrial park. Now that runs underneath the Arkansas River. Okay, it's been there for 70 years, so we know it's old pipe in there and stuff. But with all this extra rain that's been happening up above us and the snow melt, we've got a lot of pressure coming through there, and they've just been kind of monitoring it. We're not sure the exact depth of that pipe. I think somewhere between 20 to 30 feet maybe down below level. So when there's a lot of water in the river and stuff, there's a lot more pressure. So we're just kind of monitoring it. He's got his guys taking care of it. I think, they've got the right people on the job watching it. So I just kind of want to throw that out to council that, that's if that ever goes, that's a big headache. But we'll get things taken care of. We're always tackle. Could be a big fix where we'd have to bring in extra resources from the outside to help us, because it's going to take a lot of equipment and resources. But they're watching it, and there's no big worries right now. Just something we wanted to put on the radar. So, street department, as everybody knows, we've got some painting of the parking spots going on downtown. Looks a lot better already. I told Martin and his guys they're not completely done yet. They're still hitting it. So. Please be a little patient with them, but it has really dressed up the downtown, and I want to thank Mr. Mayor for throwing that out there to kind of get taken care of. The project over at 14th and Bradish has been completed, and I think it's a lot better, if I'm not mistaken, right, Cole? So that's a plus. Once they're done downtown, they're going to be jumping back on the bridge at 3rd Street right there by 3rd and Adams, the one that they redecked. Now they've got to go underneath, and they've got to get rid of some rust and stuff, and then they're going to repaint that. But they've got to remove some debris down there and stuff to get to it, so that's their next big project, is to finish that project up. And we've probably just added a ton of life to that bridge that will help us not have to replace it, hopefully down the road, for quite a while. And then, of course, the water pumps down on 1st Street, that's always the big topic when the rains and the heavy water comes through. The big question was, why wasn't there ever float switches put on there so they can turn on automatically? Well, I got good news to relay to you that one of the pumps now has a float switch, and it's working, and they're in the process of finishing up the second one. So keep our fingers crossed. Very, very, very near future, they will both have float switches. So if the water starts rising, they'll kick on automatically. That will not take away the process of somebody going down there and still making sure they're running, or can override them. And then we're also building a kind of a weather, like a canopy type thing over the one pump to kind of help keep it protected from the weather. So it'll be a little less maintenance for us. So that's a good thing. On the PD side, as everybody knows, 4th of July is right around the corner. Make sure that you'll probably see a little bit of extra patrolling going around the night of the 4th. And then also they received a gift, and this was a process and a team effort, but they received a gift of some money to purchase 4 e-bikes. These are electric bikes that will be being purchased for the police department to help, 1, patrol the trail a little better, 2, special events and maybe the parks and things like that. But these aren't just bikes that they're going to go out and buy off the shelf. These are specialized bikes, and then the people who will be riding them will have to go through some extensive training. That will, I think it's a week-long school to be certified to ride a bike. Hey, knee pads, elbow pads, maybe a helmet. That's a plus, but they'll be doing that. And then there's some reporting that will go back of how they're doing, how they're being used, and we were very appreciative of the gift and the funding that was made available for this project to help our police department. So, and then the last thing I have, of course, is the fire department. Everybody knows that we were giving away buckets this weekend called the Bucket Brigade, and it's all in reference to helping make sure that you put your fireworks in some soaked water for 20 minutes after you use them. Legal fireworks, of course, because that's all that's used, right? No, maybe not. Okay. Well, we, one of my guys in my group went out and talked to Lewis Bolt, Sutherland's, and Lahana Trading, and they were donating buckets. They donated almost somewhere between 150 and 170 buckets. We gave all those buckets out to our community within about an hour and a half. So that just shows that people are eager to help us out. So we wanted to push that to everybody, that make sure you wet everything down, and then remember the heat and how dry it's starting to get. Even though we get a little moisture, it soaks it right up. But the heat-related emergencies, make sure you're staying hydrated. If you go down to the canyons, really make sure you take enough drinking water and communication, and you're dressed appropriately. We've already been down there and had to do a couple rescues down in the canyon, and they turned out great and it worked out good. But just want to throw that in there. Make sure everybody's staying hydrated and making sure they know what's going on. So, Mr. Mayor, that's everything that I have. Everything's been going good. We are starting to kind of prepare and get ready for budget season. I kind of threw that out in our supervisors meeting this morning for my supervisors to start thinking of some things, and then we will start working as a group to get that process going and get prepared for you guys.
Absolutely. In addition to you guys getting prepared, I want to encourage council to get prepared for budget season and have an impact on what we want to see to give that information to Brad and his supervisors, so they know where our thoughts are on that. Thank you to Lewis Bolt, to Sutherland's and Lahana Trading, and just so Lahana Trading and Sutherland's know that if they did have transformers on the shelf, we'd go to them before Lowe's.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course, yes. We definitely buy them local.
And Fire Chief, I know you were busy that day for the bounty that was on you, but there's a portion of it for the canine folks.
Yes, thank you. There was a bounty on me to get dunked. I was busy and kind of avoided it. Thank you very much. I'll make sure the police department gets this. I was told this afternoon, and I think they raised almost $450, and this might even put it close to $500 for the weekend to go towards their canine program. And then I was given some information to pass on to the police chief. He's going to go down and see one of the local business guys this week and talk about a donation from them as well to go towards a canine. And I know they've used that canine quite a bit lately, and he's turned up real positive results. So it's great to see that we have that.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Shan had a booth there with her group, and the 30+ vendors was amazing. Anyone that didn't get to make it out, Chris from AMR said that when they started his in Pueblo West, that they had 6 vendors, and so he said we were already off to a better start than them, and they just hope to make it better and better.
I had the opportunity to help Chris on that first one when I was up there at my previous job, and he's really grown that one up in Pueblo tremendously, and they do work hard on it. They prepare all year long, and it pays off, and it gives a lot of safety stuff out to the public, and I think it's a great event that if we can keep building ours, we can get just as big.
We gave out like the slap bracelets, but they would go around their ankle, and it was Smokey being a part of like Smokey's team to fight wildfires, but they're reflective at night, so when kids are riding their bike or out playing, and
Good.
they would be seen, and those kids were telling other people they kept coming back to get them, and so that was a big hit.
Yeah, that works out
All
great.
about safety.
That's right. Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you.
Smokey the Bear is how old this year?
80, wasn't it?
Yeah.
August 9th.
There you go. So thank you to Chris, AMR, Rick Ritter, Health Department, Sheriff Mobley. It was a great first event, and I think it's going to be great for years to come. The helicopter landed out there, which Maureen was not a fan of, but it was an amazing day. It was really cool. So thanks for that. I do want to also thank Martin and his team for doing the lines and for working on the pump down on First Street. They've really done an amazing job.
Yeah, they really worked out. Tomorrow they're going to be working in front of the city building lines, and back here in the parking lot, kind of trying to work some more downtown. So he's not quite 100% done, but they're getting pretty close. And I drove down today, leaving to go home for a little bit, and it really looks a lot better with some lines. It dressed it up very nice.
They're working on Second and Carson as well too. They're trying to get that
Yeah,
completed.
get that pan completed. Yep.
It's looking good over there.
Starting to.
Any other questions for Brad?
Thank you for all you do.
You betcha. Thank you.
Now, Mrs. Harris, it's your turn.
Well, I'm on.
Give us
it.
a lesson.
Okay, I don't know how long you want the lesson to be. I think there were some questions previously about, I hate to go that far back to civics class, but the question was, how does a bill become a law? Except that it was in the context of a city, how does an ordinance get onto either the ballot or otherwise become a law? So I don't know how much you actually are interested in. I know that this week there were some questions about what would we do if the council did not originate a new law? So maybe we start there. And are there specific questions that anybody had that you want to talk about first, or should I just run at it?
I'll just give you a brief
Okay.
history. You can
Sure.
absolutely do yours, but Dean used to just say, if you're interested in putting something on the ballot, you have two ways to go about it.
Sure.
Through council, or you can get X amount of...
Right, you
to-
can get an
and you-
initiative.
Yes.
And so if you've gone to council already, and we could use an example like e-bikes. Let's say that you have not the e-bikes that the law enforcement folks have, but maybe you see e-bikes that are racing along the street, and you say to yourself, I really think that e-bikes ought to be only operated by people with a driver's license. I'm making this up, but if we say that. So the first thing that someone might do is they would come and talk with council, and they would say, is there anybody on council who would support that? And if someone on council did, then maybe we would have a ordinance presented here, and it would go through the process that the public has already seen, where there's a first reading and a second reading. But if council didn't pick that up, and instead that same person thought that they wanted to bring that issue through the electorate or the citizens, then there are really lots of rules that you would do to get that, the way that we say it is to get it on the ballot. So you would begin by looking at the rules. Now, one of the things that's really important is La Junta is a home rule city. So sometimes you're going to be looking at the home rule charter of La Junta to make sure that you're looking at rules, and other times you're going to be looking at those statutes in section 31 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to find the same stuff. I tried to find just a summary that could give you an overview, but some of these numbers are really boring. But basically, you would have to submit a form of the petition to the city clerk for approval. You do that first. What was that?
Which is Melanie.
That's right. You give that form to Melanie. Melanie would look at it. And there's a number of days that she has to look at it. And if she finds that there's a problem with it, she can give it back to have those problems revised. And then the party who's written the petition has a certain number of days. In fact, the issue is she's got 10 days, then 10 more days can be used for amendment, and then Mel would have 5 days then to look at it again, and eventually, if it is approved, it becomes something that we seek. If you've ever seen someone asking for signatures on a petition, that's what it becomes. It's interesting to note, though, that if Mel were to still find problems with it, the party that was offering that ordinance as a petition would not be able to bring it back to make further corrections for a year. It takes that long, so you want to make sure with one of those 2 tries that you get it right. After that, you have to go through and collect signatures. You need 15% you need signatures in the number of 15% of the electorate who voted in the previous election. So there is some math, like Maureen was pointing out with some of Tom Seba's thing earlier. There's always math up here. But then you really want to be looking at your timing, because you need to you've got 15 days then to canvass for signatures. There's a number of various times, but eventually it comes down to Within 60 days, you may want to work back from when the election is. 60 days of that is when you need to have those. And there were lots of lessons learned. If the group remembers any petition that has been unsuccessful before the council, you might remember that these mistakes in collecting the signatures, this is a place where our home rule is not going, our charter is not going to speak to this. You're going to be looking at Title 31. You're going to be checking all of those specific rules, things like you are not to remove a staple once you have those. If you remember, a staple played very carefully in a petition that came before the council, I think it might have been 8 years ago. So all of those rules need to be complied with. But once the petition has been successfully completed and Mel has blessed it in a number of other formal pieces, then it is put on the ballot. And we vote on it the same way that we would vote on anything else, like someone running for a member of council. Is that specific enough? We could go with more if you'd like.
Do you want to just say, like date-wise, do they have a timeline for the November ballot?
I think for the November ballot, the first date is July 26th for the first piece. And if you hit that correctly, then all of the other numbers are going to run from there. But it would be fairly soon if you were working on making a change for this election cycle. What's important to note is if you are not able to put your proposal in the form of this petition in during a cycle that there's already an election planned, you have to have a special election. And the charter does allow for that. But that elections are expensive. So if we're already having one, this is the time to add something else, because we're not adding new expenses in addition to a run for a new ordinance.
I think you did an amazing job.
Well, thanks. My very first one. All right.
So if you have any other questions for Mrs. Harris on that? And this isn't just for council, this is for everybody out there that needs to understand how that works. You know, sometimes people get frustrated because they want it done a certain way, and there's rules to it.
Well, I was just going to say, conversely, we can also refer something. We can ask that something be.
Yes.
That's how 2A was put on the ballot
Right.
last
You
year.
use it
is
through
that
referendum.
The council, referred
Yes.
to the ballot. So
You absolutely can.
it can be
The
direct
questions,
democracy or the council.
you got it. The questions recently have been, what could we do if we had an ordinance that would, specifically, how do you make a change to an existing ordinance? Well, you would need a new ordinance, and so that process. The other thing I noticed in this research that I think could be incredibly helpful once we do have the website moving, many, especially home rule cities, because home rule cities require a little bit more explanation since people can't just say, oh, go ahead and look at the statutes. Many of them do have a sort of timeline process that people can reference. We might want to consider putting one in. That would not be my decision, but if I were asked to draft it, I'd be glad to do so. No, I'm talking about on the website, you would put a list of how a bill becomes a law. It wouldn't, in this case, how an ordinance becomes a law. But many cities do make a graph of that, so it just and starts with an FAQ that says, do you have an idea that you'd like to have be put before the electorate? How would you do that? And it just has a little flow chart, essentially, with dates, and then what the websites generally do is they're updating those each year, so people don't have to do their own arithmetic figuring out what the dates are. Because, like we were saying earlier, we don't want to do math if we don't have to.
Absolutely. No math. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Harris. Governing body comments. Do you have any governing body comments?
Well, first I have to correct my comment on the math. I was pointing out, Tom's not even here. He won't appreciate it. I was just saying that there is such a gap between what the conduit is proposed to cost versus what has already been identified. So it's sort of a shocking disparity between those two numbers. So that's why the word math slipped out of my mouth. Not because I don't like math. Okay, so moving on to the rest of my comments.
And that was a conservative number that
Yeah.
Bureau
Mhm.
recommended.
Yeah. So shocking math. Yeah, concerning math. Okay. So I wore my flamingo scarf tonight. I just want to point out that my family was recently flocked by the Southeast Colorado Creative Partnership. I don't know if any of you have ever had the flamingos show up in your front yard, but it was a lot of fun. So I loved it. My daughter said, "Why would we pay for them to come back and get them? I love them." But we appreciate that it's a fundraiser. So the flock has moved on at least twice since it's stopping briefly at 7th and Lincoln. So thank you. It's a fabulous fundraiser, and appreciate the work that you do. So second, I did attend the CML Colorado Municipal League meeting already 2 weeks ago, along with Paul and Aaron, and just the amount of information. I think there's 261, maybe now 262 municipalities in the state of Colorado, and it was just an opportunity to be immersed with ideas of local governance and government with our peers and other people who care very much about making healthy cities and towns in Colorado. So it was a fantastic event, and there's lots of little things. Getting a youth board going was something I got really excited about. Paul and I both attended a workshop about including disability efforts into the whole city, our EDI efforts. But the one that I would like to focus a little bit on tonight is I went to a great presentation about the budget process. Who would have ever thought those words would have come out of your mouth? As you're wearing a flamingo scarf, it's very contradictory. Fun scarf, budget process. So I think that what Joe has proposed on Wednesday at 8 o'clock is a great start, because I think it's a chance for city council members to start being very intentional, thinking through what are our priorities. What became very clear to me, listening to how other cities do their budget processes, is that the input from the city council should come on the front end of the process, not in the middle and not at the end. Because if you're doing it at those two places, you're really not giving staff an opportunity to respond to what our actual our interests are and our concerns are. So I'm proposing that we kind of think about budgeting a little differently, not with any sort of formal ordinance or resolution, but just that as a council, we really start thinking about the budgeting process of us taking the time and being intentional about saying, this is what we see as the priorities for the city right now. And so that Brad has the confidence that when he's going in to talk to his leadership, that he has a sense of what we care about. And he's not going to bring something back that we're going to go, whoa, 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 no. That's not helpful to anyone. It makes you have to do work 2 or 3 times. It really should only be done once. And so I think the walking tour is a great start. I would like to suggest that we also have a town hall style discussion about what the city council members' budget priorities are. And I guess I would ask Brad when we can do that it would be helpful and not interfere or slow down the process that I know you've already started. So
yeah, and kind of funny that we talked about that in the supervisors meeting this morning. Of just amongst the supervisors that were there, of let's look at it a different view this year instead of capital projects first, blah blah blah. Let's all talk, and we're going to work on it as a team. So I think this is a great idea to maybe look at a different process to. I don't know about speeding it up, but make it flow a little easier when it comes down to time of, okay, here's our final numbers, and we do give the presentation to the council. I would say, in my timeline that I'm looking at, towards the end of the month or the very first part of August would be great, because that gives us the month of August to really start working on some numbers and some goals, lining things out as supervisors as well. So I can put what council wants and what supervisors need and want, and let's see how we can maybe work on some things.
Could I that as well, before we talk about the date? Because one of the sessions I attended at CML was I happened to meet someone who was working with Littleton, and they were talking about what they do in Littleton is more formal, but they had what they were referring to as a leadership academy. But when I really learned about it, it was an opportunity for supervisors and city departments to make public to anyone who wanted to come hear it what they do every day. And I wondered if it could be useful to do something like that in connection with talking about budget, because the electorate may not know what Melanie does. So if we were trying to create something where we had a town hall, the more informed town hall might be folks who had stopped in, if Melanie were willing to go to the library with that open space room that's there maybe and just talk about the top 5 things that are part of her work. And I just wonder if that would inform that town hall even more thoroughly about what departments are doing, because that seemed to be something that came out of my experience at CML.
And we also talked about maybe using a third party to facilitate the budget.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. Not the entire budget process, but gathering gathering the town hall with council, having conversations with each other, but also, of course, the public. This would be a very public discussion and meeting, and I think having somebody come and perhaps facilitate it would be a great idea. And it was Golden was the municipality that I was so impressed with their budget process. So, and they also had a citizen budget academy that did a very similar thing where this was an annual thing, so different than maybe the process we're going to do this year, but something to aspire to. But citizens becoming informed and maybe initially having a lot of questions about what's going on at the city, but then becoming champions because they understand how things are working. So I got really excited about it. I know Aaron did too, from a different angle. So.
And I just want to add too that this is our first year without our previous city manager, and he had a direct way of doing that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it was a different way of doing it from what I've ever seen before. And I talked a little bit with Maureen about this today. And now is a time to really relook at how we do that going forward.
Changed some things already. Let's change it again.
And the council should be playing a larger role in that. It shouldn't just be, hey, here's our budget.
Yeah.
Vote yes.
What do you think?
Because by then you guys have done so much work. It's really late in the game to try and switch that around. So when Maureen came to me today and said, "Hey, let's do this," I said, "You're right, where I want to be anyway." So working with Brad and getting some other ideas in, like Aaron has, I mean, this is the perfect time to do something like that.
I agree.
All right. So I'm comfortable saying we can work offline, find a date, and definitely put it out there and maybe find a facilitator to help as well to make it a really meaningful discussion. So, 2 other things, but they're short. So on the economic development, I have some questions. I have some suggestions for that, but in lieu of everything about economic development being changed a little bit, I will save some of that. But I am very interested in looking at specifically some of the tax revenues. I know there's a lot of questions about how the sales tax has impacted both local businesses, but also the entities that we promised would be kept around because of the passage of 2A. So I'll talk more specifically about those later. And then finally, Lisa and I will be at the Mercantile Park at 6 p.m. on Monday, July 8th to do our Ward 3. We're delighted because lines being painted was something that came up with the last one, and boom, they're done, just like that. So
it wasn't just like that, I'll say that. They're done. They're done.
Just like that. We're gonna go with that, Joe. But anyway, I appreciate it because we talked about it, and I already have had people say, "Hey, that's awesome. They look great." And so it's just nice to have people notice that stuff is getting done. So thank you for the lines, and thank you to people who take time to come and talk to Lisa and I at the park on Monday nights. The second Monday of every month. Council, Ward 3, Council, off. That's your Monday night schedule.
There you go.
I'm done. Matt.
Any other governing body comments?
I just wanted to talk about the weeds and the ordinance. And so for those of you out there, take a look at your yards. For some of you business owners that just have businesses boarded up and sitting with weeds growing all around it, we're going to get tough on that. And so I believe with speaking with the mayor today that, because I had a list that I sent him, and it was a very short list, because I've been getting messages and calls from people who aren't even in my ward, but that's fine, you know, I'll go drive by and take a look at the property and whatnot. And so I made a short list, and I've been adding to it and adding to it. So for now, the short list will make sure that there's been some communication and there's going to be some resolution on it. So, because we're not just going to have dilapidated buildings and weeds growing all over in alleyways, or if for your home, as matter, you know, for a matter of fact. So we're going to start cleaning up.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we have an amazing code officer who's working very hard to get all of this taken care of, but he is one code officer. And we shouldn't put everything on him. We should, you know, do our part in making sure our yards are kept up, making sure our businesses are kept up, and just doing everything we can to make Hana look great. I put in a call to Brad and I said, hey, we got to work on some businesses. And he put in a call out there too, so hopefully those are getting taken care of. But no one is not just not doing anything. So I did share with Shan that there is a section of town that's being looked at right now. And then when that section is gone through, you know, he'll start on another section of town. But Colby is doing his best, and he is one guy. And in addition to weeds, he's also doing, you know, junk vehicles, and he's doing dogs and all these other things.
And
so
it takes all of us, you know, as a community to pull together. And I don't drive on all of these streets here and see. And so, you know, it was eye-opening for me to drive by a certain house, and there's not just tree limbs, it was basically a small tree laying there. No one could pass through it if they were walking. It's not safe, it looks horrible, it looks like we don't care. And so thank you to those citizens who are bringing to attention.
Absolutely,
that
because
things are going on,
if
so
you
it
just
takes
assume
us
that
all.
everyone knows, they don't. And once Shan brought it to me, I took it to Todd and Colby. And
Well, now, I also want to kind of remind everybody too, not only on your personal property, but if you do have a business, you're responsible for your area, not only just in front, but in back, out in the alley, and around your business too. The city doesn't come around and just spray weeds on the sidewalks. That's not our responsibility. So if you can help us out, that'll help beautify this place to make it better too. But it's just a teamwork. That's what it is. It's not individuals. It ends up being a team. So just kind of want to put that in. It's your responsibility as well.
And the four-wheeler was out spraying weeds on the curbs today, so good job to them. The mosquito truck has been the topic of a lot of online conversation. There are only certain times that they can do it, and just because you did not see them go by your house does not mean that they did not go by your house.
Right.
And it only does so much. It doesn't mean that every mosquito is going to be gone because they went by all the time.
So you can see where they've been.
Like the town is like painted, blue, then we know they've been by.
Yeah. And just because they weren't there at 6 p.m. when you were home does not mean
That's
that
right.
they did.
That's right.
Yes.
That vacant store on 2nd Street, that used to, I don't know if it was a Bunny's or a Quickies.
Oh yeah, 3rd Street.
That tree overhanging the sidewalk.
That is one of the
Those
ones
shrubs
that
is
does.
one of
Yeah,
them.
that's a hazard. Yeah.
That was a funny
We
story.
talked about that before, and then remember they painted the building and started cleaning up, and it's like, oh, good, you know, great, that's gonna, and then nothing. So it's like a lot of these people have businesses, and it's like they, a little bit of momentum, and then just shut down. Well, it's not gonna fly anymore. So,
That is one that is on the list already. I had to first explain to Colby what Quickies was. He's like, what is that? He said, oh, you mean Chester's Chicken? I said, no, Quickies. It's Quickies.
Nobody knows where Quickies is.
I'd like to give a shout out to Martin Montoya, and he did an excellent job of covering what that crew is doing. But Martin's doing that on a limited budget with what he has, as
Right.
all directors are doing. But Martin and that crew have been busy, and I know last week it was hot, and they were finishing up Radish and they've done Grace and 16th, and the lines. So that's impactful
for what just one department is doing. And I'm not saying that everybody's not doing something, but if I didn't give Martin a shout out for the pumps on First Street, that's amazing, because this has been here 4 years, and this is the first time that those problems have been impacted and taken care of off the suggestion.
Well, even the bridges, I mean, the one on 3rd and Adams, the one that they tackled, that was one that was on the list after the bridge inspections, that, hey, in the next few years, if you guys don't do something, you're gonna have to replace this whole bridge. The other one on the other side of town on 3rd Street by 3rd and Maple, that's a different story. I mean, it's on the list of something we're gonna have to work on in the next few years, but more than likely, that'll be a grant through CDOT, hopefully, to we may have to replace that whole bridge. But he used his manpower on this one, and a little bit of help from TLM, subcontracting out to fix that, to help extend that life of that bridge, and overall save some money for the city. Same thing with all the water department and everybody on those big jobs, man. They've been working together with other local departments, and it's really showed a lot of pride and a lot of enthusiasm to get that stuff done.
And if we wanted to be serious in talking about budget and looking at budget early, you look at the streets budget from the last 2 years, and what they're doing with their budget is amazing.
Right.
And we really need to probably put that on our priority list going forward of what they can do with a bigger budget.
Sure.
So with that, do we have any other comments? No? Mal, do you want to talk about the top 5 things you do? Not yet? No? Okay.
No.
With that, I will adjourn us. Thank you all for coming out.